What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel. Joining me this go around, somebody I've been very excited to talk to for quite some time. I'm glad we was able to finally make it happen. He is a former one-time holder of the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. 20 plus years have been put into this wrestling business by this man. This is Tim Storm. Tim, what's going on, boss man? How you feeling?
Man, Andrew, I'm good. I appreciate you taking the time, man. I'm excited to be here.
For sure, for
Whatever
sure.
we can do to make this wrestling thing work. So,
I appreciate you taking the time, man. Like now, Tim, viewers of the NWA, of course, right now they regularly see you at the commentary desk alongside Joe Galley, but you very much are still taking bookings. I know you have quite a few indie dates, and you still very much active in the ring. After 20 plus years, man, talk to me about how you feeling physically, how you feeling mentally, and is it just simply just the love of the sport that keeps you in the ring?
yeah, that's what it is. I'm passionate. I have been for a really long time about professional wrestling. I've had the pleasure over the years of getting to travel with some very, very knowledgeable, uh, you know, I guess old timers. And one of those was a guy named Skandar Akbar,
Mm.
who was a manager, started, I guess, in Mid South, had a big angle with Danny Hodge back in the day where they were partners. Anyway, Ack was a legend in the business, especially here. And he told me, he goes, there's two ways to get out of the wrestling business if you love it. He said, you either die or they stop booking you. And and I laughed at the time because that was probably 10, 12 years ago. But it's an addiction that I can't break. I love being in the ring. Um, being a commentary is good. It's a I want to be around the business, and I know I can't be in the ring forever. So it's just passion. Physically, man, I don't. All every wrestler hurts. That's just the
Yeah.
way it is. So, mentally, it's I would make this analogy. Before wrestling, I did a lot of things. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe, but I played a lot of basketball, and there was a time when I blew my knee out, and I realized, okay, I have to change my game. I'm not explosive anymore. I don't have that quick first step, so I better work on my low post game. And that's
Mm.
kind of the way wrestling is. As your body starts to break down and you can't do what you could do before, you just got to be smarter, right? I mean, you got to change your game so that you can still compete.
Mm. I didn't know about like I've seen like a couple of interviews just over the years. I don't think I ever heard you mention that you used to play basketball. Like what was that when you was in high school or college, or you talking about just like recreational, like just out and about with friends?
Um, I guess a little bit of all that. I
Mm.
did not play in college. I played football for a couple of years in college, but I ended up. Okay, we're about to go down a weird rabbit hole. I ended up going to a small private high school on a football scholarship. And I thought my thinking at the time was, um, you know what? Colleges are going to see me now, right? I mean, I'm going to be what I think is going to be the best player on this team, and we had some really good players. So I'm not going to say I was the best because if they hear it, then they would disagree with me, even though I was. But the deal was when you took this scholarship, you had to play every sport, and I had played basketball. I wasn't that good, but at this school, I ended up starting as a sophomore. We had an all senior team by the time I was a senior, and I got pretty serious about it. And going into college, I just love the game, and I treated it like I treat wrestling now. It was almost a constant. Back in the day, we got Sunday NBA games. That's it. That's what
Yeah.
we got. And it was recorded, and it was usually Lakers, Celtics, Sixers.
Yeah.
And I became a Barkley fan at the time, and I wanted my game to be like Barkley, right? I could, if you put a big man on me, I'm gonna blow around you. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? If you put a small man on me, I'm gonna post you up. So um, that was the game, and I played a ridiculous amount. Played in tournaments and things like that. But I loved the game, and today, still to this day in the gym, I work out at an LA Fitness, and there's a basketball court there. Mentally, I still want to play. I'll pass the court. I'll pass the court, and I'll go, oh man, that should have been a bounce pass, man. I mean, you had the angle. Physically, I can't do anything. My whole body's changed. I don't. I
Yeah.
anyway. But I was passionate about the game.
So here we go talking basketball. Like I really like that you said you mentioned Charles Barkley. Like I think a lot of people like of course I wasn't around to like I don't think I don't think I was old enough at the point to like realize what Charles Barkley was doing. But like I've of course going back and seeing a lot of his games and stuff like that. I think that Charles Barkley, especially because what he does now on TNT, a lot of people present day view him as like just like the funny guy who makes like
Right.
all the cool jokes on TV and all the funny jokes, very entertaining. But a lot of people don't. But Charles Barkley was a beast. Like he was legit
He
one of the best
ran
big
the
men in the
play.
league. Yeah,
Well, and yes, but he was what, 6'4" and a half,
yeah, yeah.
right? So it's everybody back in the day, and I did too, but I also realized everybody wanted to be Jordan. I get it, you know. Uh, I grew up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, which if anybody knows that, they know what that means. And what I got every time I stepped on the court was, all right, I got Bird. All right, I got Bird. I
Mm.
didn't want to be Bird. Now a Bird could play, but I didn't want to be Bird. I wanted to be Barkley. So it's the game developed. I love to charge. If you're watching, and just if you're a basketball fan, just go watch the Barkley highlights. It's intense, brutal, whole different game. And anyway, that's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be, okay, let's watch this transition. I wanted to be Barkley and I wanted to be Dusty Rhodes. So
Hey, look,
between those two, those were my things.
switching it back into wrestling, man. But like, so as I was going through some of the matches that you had this year, I had noticed that yourself and Nick Aldis had the opportunity to wrestle for a promotion out in Texas. I think back in April or May. I want to say,
Excellent.
like, so talk to me about like what was it like? I'm assuming to sort of like recreate or update what you guys did on screen for the National Wrestling Alliance.
Well, Nick actually told me this 4 or 5 years ago, but he said that it was funny how many people when he started working for the NWA, he had a quick little moment where everybody was like, "Oh, that's Magnus." But within 6 months, people didn't even know who Magnus was. Now they know who Nick Aldis was, right?
Mm.
Um, boy, man, like the Ric Flair rap video, right? The drip. It
Oh,
it
yeah.
it hurt, it hurt me. It hurt me to know that there was a generation of people who knew Ric Flair because he was
Yeah,
in the
because
video drip, but didn't
yeah.
know what he had done in wrestling. Okay. So, Nick and I guess he realized it way before I did, through the 10 Pounds of Gold episode. He realized that we were very much such polar opposites in every way that the chemistry would be good. Um, and he's a true professional. And, we got in there and we had some natural chemistry, and we had really natural chemistry anytime that we were promoing with each other. It just happened. So one of the promoters, actually pretty locally here, was a big fan of that whole time period with the NWA and the angles that we run and the way things went, and he wanted to give it the opportunity for this part of Texas to see that, and when we got to do that, and it was I don't know, I guess it was kind of like riding a bike, man. We got in there and it was just things clicked. We didn't have to talk. We just went.
Mm.
And um, a lot of people were like, "Man, you did some dirty stuff in there." And I was like, "You know what? You know how many times Nick's beat me? How many times? How many times? I mean, he took what I considered or what I said was my mountaintop in wrestling, beat me for the world title. So it was a good match. It was a lot of fun to be back in there. And then, Nick's gone on to do some big things. And just like everybody else, I think there's room in wrestling. I want everybody to be successful.
Mm.
Nick's gonna do well.
For sure. And like sort of like continuing on what you just said about that sort of time period for the NWA pre-pandemic NWA. I think
Sure.
it's just the right way to refer to it. Like man, I
Yeah.
think that was like such a very special time, like especially that launch of the Power program, like the abundance of talent that came through the NWA, like Eddie Kingston, Ricky Starks, Thunder Rosa, Allison Kay, man, yourself, Nick, Camille was coming into her own at the time. Like, and it just seemed like everything was like rolling and it just clicking on all cylinders for you guys. So for somebody that was there for you, just talk to me about how special that time period was for the NWA and how like seemingly things just like took off like within a span of a month, not even a span of months. Like as soon as Power launched, you saw like the sort of rave reviews that it got on social media and how many people was invested in the product and then going to the pay-per-views like that delivered on the match quality as well. Just talk to me about like from somebody who was actually there and was able to experience it, how special that time period was.
Well, I can tell you from legit the minute that I walked in. Um, they had told me the concept. They wanted a studio type show, and I grew up watching, NWA, and all of that was studio. I was a big Gordon Soley, was announcer. I was a big Gordon Soley fan. So when they said studio show, but I didn't get that picture in my head. All right. So walk in the doors at what was it? GPS Studios.
Yeah, I think
Um,
GPB or GPB studio. Yeah.
Public broadcasting. There you go.
Mm.
And it was, you walk down the stairs, and as you're coming down the stairs, it was all set up. They had the ring, they had the backdrop, they had the flags up, and it was like, the Hallelujah chorus playing, and it wasn't, and I thought, okay, that's just me, but
Mm.
legit, everybody that was walking around, and I mean everybody from all those guys you named to Jim Cornette to Ricky Morton to, I mean, everybody had that feeling. Um, the crowd became, especially that first season, first two seasons, became part of the show. I mean, they were right there on top of you. If you're cutting a promo, they're going to say something, you can respond to the crowd, which you can't do in a big situation. And I mean, I know this is kind of cliche, but it was magic.
Mm.
Like you said, the talent that came in, everything clicked. Match quality was incredible. Crowd was in. I mean, it was packed every time. Um, no music.
Yeah.
Promo became a big thing, right? I mean, well, and a lot of guys had never done that. It was the guy that trained me refused to come out to music because he was old school. He said, "I don't need music. I want the crowd." And they threw you. I mean, they legit said, "You're going to, when you walk through the curtains, you've got about 50 feet to get over, right? I mean, to get to,
Mm.
that's what you got." And as far as a promo was considered, you went up there with Dave Marquez had the mic, and it was sink or swim, right? I mean, and that's what they told us. You get up there and cut your promo, and if you knock it out, you take some chances, and if you knock it out of the park, you're going to get more promos. So to me, that was best case scenario for me.
Mm.
And then I guess I know it was the first taping. I don't know if it was the first airing or not, but Nick and I wrestled.
Yeah, I think that was the
And,
first episode. Yeah.
and for us, now we didn't have that. Now we've wrestled however many times, we have that familiarity. And I think well, I don't think it was very clear in my mind because I remember the pit. I remember when it came up, but it was, if you lose, you never get a shot at the world title again. And it still is like, I feel it. That's incredibly real to me. I know, I mean, wrestling is wrestling, but so you're telling me that on the first show, we're gonna go out there and we ended up having probably the best match we'd had up, to that date. But if I lose, I'm done in the world title picture forever. So that was very real emotionally to me, regardless of what anybody thinks about professional wrestling, and it still is. Like, I feel that in my heart when that happens. And you know, later on things are going to change a little bit, but yeah, it was a incredible situation, like you said, pre-COVID,
Mm.
because
You good? You good, Tim?
yeah, but when COVID hit, and everything changes, right? I mean, for everybody
Yeah.
worldwide.
Yeah. Like when I look back at that time period, man, like I'm thinking something like probably my favorite match, and honestly, I think this was like a real sleeper match from 2020. And I mean, like I think the reason this match from NWA kind of gets lost in the mix because it did happen pre-pandemic, and then like I guess like comparing that to like what happened, in like these arenas with no crowds and stuff. I guess people may not deem it like fair to compare it. You know what I'm saying? It's just two different things. But I genuinely think that, and I said this like after it happened, I genuinely think this is gonna be like a top 10 match of 2020. The people not saying that, I don't know what they watching, but it was Thunder Rosa versus Allison Kay at NWA Hard Times, the first Hard Times pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That was one of the best matches I seen that year. Like that, and again, I just don't think it gets talked about enough because when you talking about, I guess when you now, and especially over the last several years, and just in history, you have an even playing field to a certain
Mhm.
degree in terms of the audience being able to react to certain things. But like in 2020, it's like you got the first 3 months and then everything else is just, a
Right.
drop off in comparison to crowds.
Right.
But like that was one of my favorites of that year, and I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. But coming up for you, man. Speaking of NWA pay-per-views, NWA 75th anniversary show, St. Louis, Missouri. You facing Jax Dane in a no disqualification match. Could this be the start of us seeing more Tim Storm wrestling in an NBA manner? Is that something you want? And also, I wanted to ask you, because I don't know if it's been confirmed or not. So excuse me from about the mix. But is your match on night two, or is it night one, or has it not been confirmed yet?
I don't know if it's been confirmed. My feeling is probably night one. And let me go back so that Thunder Rosa was coming into her own on that. People up to that. I knew her because she's from down this Texas, San
Yeah,
Antonio, and I knew her well. Allison Kay was a former champion already. I mean,
I
I
think
mean,
so.
I think so. And those two ladies went in there, and it was physical.
Yeah.
It was it was a real okay. So anyway, I agree with you. That was a great match. Jax, I think probably night one, but I don't know. And I know it's been confirmed as an ODQ match, which I think is a good thing. Um, to answer your question, I don't know. I don't okay. I've said this before, and I want to make sure I say it carefully because I don't want anybody. But here's how it's been. When coming out of, it was pre-pandemic. It was when Cornette, when Jim left, and then Wade Barrett came in, and then Wade left, right? And because of the pandemic, we just basically shut down. And then he's going to come out the other side with WWE.
Yeah.
But they came to me and they said, okay, uh, bring a suit. We want you to do a couple of matches on the pay per view on the announce table. Okay, I don't, whatever. I'm good. We don't have a match for we don't you. I didn't have a match on the pay per view. That's good. Joe Galley comes up to me and I'm getting dressed and he goes, so I hear you're gonna do commentary. And I went, yeah, a couple of them. I don't know which matches yet. And but they haven't told me which matches. And he goes, no, you're doing commentary. And I went, I know, I just don't know which matches. And he goes, no, you don't understand. You and I are doing commentary for the whole live pay per view. And I went, okay. And later one of the Pat comes up and he goes, are you nervous about this and all? And I went, no, am I supposed to be nervous? I mean, seriously, is this something I should be thinking about? And he goes, no, you're fine. So here's what I say, because I'm always careful. It goes, when I'm put up when they put me on commentary and I'm told, okay, at this point you're more valuable on commentary. In my mind, what I'm thinking is, oh wait, so you're saying I can't wrestle for you? Is that what you're saying? Like
Right.
I'm not good enough to. This is my ego inside. Now the other side of that is, if they say, hey, we got you with a match and somebody else is doing commentary, inside I'm immediately going, oh wait, I'm not good enough to do commentary. You know
Hey,
what I'm saying?
you found somebody took
I
my
want,
spot.
yeah, I want to do well at whatever I'm doing. I want to be, but I want to be a professional and approach it. Okay, I have no clue if this is a start of something or if this is because Jackson and I have a history. We have a brutally physical world title chase, defense, win history between the two of us. I couldn't give you a number how many times that we've wrestled, but every single time it is incredibly physical. And I mean, I was thinking about this driving home from the gym. There were times, and never mind, I shouldn't say this because I have to wrestle him, but there were times when I knew that every time he would hit me with that clothesline, that there'd be about a half a second where I was going to black out. Legit. I mean, every time. I just knew it. It's just that's how hard the match, how hard we work. So I know going into 75, um, we got a little heat going with each other. It is a real thing. We have a history where I don't know how many times that I've bled in how many states chasing the NWA world title. Um, this isn't a secret. I don't think I've ever kicked somebody in the head as hard as I've kicked Jack Stain in the head. But I don't know what to expect coming out of this. Going into this, it's gonna be fun because that's what I enjoy doing. But I don't know how many I have left.
Mm.
I'm going into this thinking this may possibly be my. I mean, I'm not planning, but this could possibly be my last pay-per-view match. I mean, I'm again no secret. I'm 59. I'll be 60. Um, at what point? At what point is it time to step away?
Mm. I mean, what like when I'm looking at your group, like it seems like just from like over the past, like of course you and Joe Galley, I think that y'all are a very, very, very solid commentary team. I do enjoy you two together as a pairing. But also, I mean, I think that just from hearing what you saying, of course, it doesn't sound like, and then you like literally said it, like you don't plan or intend or stepping away from the ring anytime soon. So I think that maybe, whether it's night one or night two, Saturday or Sunday, NWA 75, it'll be like, I guess, a good check-in point for you. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's the right words to use, like a good, feel out to see how things going, especially, you going into a no DQ match, so you getting it all, you getting it all right there. Everything any question you could possibly want answered, I'm sure you and Jack Dane are probably going to make sure to follow through on. But like just to circle back to the commentary, man, like again, I do think you and Joe Gallo are a very, very solid commentary team. Talk to me about what it's been like for you to be able to add to the product and be able to enhance the talents with your words. And usually being able to bring something out of or uplift the person you in the ring with, but now you get to do that, verbally, and without a microphone, more so behind the commentary desk. How's that been for you?
Joe is amazing at what he does. Um, One of the things that he and Velvet and I had to kind of
Oh yeah, Velvet,
develop
yeah.
as a team is its timing. And I mean, we all have, just as people, we have our tendencies on what we want to talk about. But um, Joe's amazing, Velvet's amazing, you know. And for them to come in and like for Joe, Joe will come in and he's basically steering the ship. I mean, it's he's the lead. He's taking us down. What if I want to stick with the boat analogy? He's taking us down the river, and he's the one that's going. Okay, Velvet, and he's steering it. And the more our chemistry continue to get better, we just kind of feel it. Um, Velvet has missed a couple of, and I've missed a couple. The chemistry is just different. A two-man booth, some people prefer that, but again, the chemistry is different. So Joe makes that really easy because he's so good.
Mm.
Um, I enjoy it. Some of the guys in the locker room are like, man, you got the best job ever. You get to be here, right? I mean, because if you're not booked for a match, you may not be there. You got a front row seat, and for me, it's some of the best wrestling in the world. I mean, it's the talent that the NWA has, and our women's division over the last few years has been just incredible. Our men's division, our heavy, I mean, you name it, and it's like I get to sit there and I basically just comment on what I see. Those guys are out there working hard. I see my job as just putting those guys over for what they do because, I look back in history, I look at some commentators, and there's been some guys who it's almost like maybe they called themselves a heel commentator. I don't know. But it's like they almost like they're working against the wrestlers. And
Mm.
I think that's just to me, that's the wrong way to approach it. Um, I need to put over them because they're working so hard. And to be honest, if it's not good, I'm not going to lie and say it is. I'll just find a way not to say something if that's. Um, so I mean, our talent is on top. I mean, it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. This could be a deal where I wrestle every weekend,
Yeah.
sometimes two or three times in a weekend, and I'm wrestling some very talented people. Jack Dane is a whole different level. And I know that from experience. And I don't mean that there's nobody out there that I'm wrestling that's not good. I'm not saying that. But what you guys have seen with Jax Dane is the Dane event.
Mhm.
And what I've seen from Jax and what I want to see in St. Louis is I want to see Godzilla again because that's what brings out the best of me. That's Jax Dane. That's Godzilla. That's a monster. But that's what I expect. Um, I don't go into any match thinking that I'm not going to win. I think I believe I'm going to beat him. It, I've won some. I've lost probably more than I've won with him.
Mm.
But big stage, big opportunity. Um, like you said, I'll be able to kind of evaluate and say, where am I at? It's but hey man, I believe it's just like in any other sport. When you got a big opportunity, that's when you rise to the challenge.
Mm. And recently, man, NWA owner Billy Corgan, he was doing some media, and he had said that he had a conversation with you, and you had told him that he said Tim Storm told me that he's never going to retire, never. It's not going to happen. And I wanted to ask you, like, and I know we touched on it a little bit, and I don't like going like when I ask these questions, I don't like going like too far in the future, so I'll just say like within the next 6 months to a year, ideally, what is Tim Storm doing in the wrestling business? Like, just let's keep it within that time frame. Let's say like 5 to 6 months from now, past NWA 75, you got through the Master Jack's name. What is like at the ideal perfect spot for Tim Storm? Like as far as like in the wrestling bit, you can include commentary within that as well, but also in ring as well. Like what does that look like for you? What would be the perfect scenario for you? The perfect, just ideal situation.
You want me to be realistic, or do you want me to tell you what the best situation would be? And because for me, obviously,
Let's say both. Let's say
being,
both. Let's say both.
there is nothing better. There's been in wrestling than being the NWA World Champion. That's it. There's nothing higher. And and I mean in all of wrestling. And when I said that, whatever, 5 or 6 years ago, I had people come at me pretty hard. Oh, come on now. If this happened, you'd be gone in a second. No. Because I mean, but look where I came from. And I have been an NWA fan since I was whatever, 11 years old. To me, I've told this story, but it's like I got Memphis wrestling in the morning on Saturdays. I got Georgia Championship Wrestling, NWA, in the afternoon, and I got World Class. I got the Von Erichs every Saturday night. So 3 times a day, I was watching wrestling, and NWA was it for me. That's it. I mean, you had Road Warriors, you had Flair, you had the Four Horsemen, you had Luger. I mean, you name it. That was the best of the best. I mean, and throw the Rock and Roll Express in there. I mean, it's you had the Fantastics, you name it, and NWA was it. So I grew up watching Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Terry Funk, the Funks, the Briscoes. I grew up watching those guys, and when I became NWA World's Champion, and people have said, "Well, was that your goal?" No, never dreamed that high. So
Mm-hmm.
when that happened, it exceeded any expectation or any dream I'd ever had. Okay, so that's probably that's not necessarily realistic at 59 years old. I mean, look at our champion now. Tyrus is what, 6'8", 350, in great shape, incredibly intelligent, knows how to go after somebody. He's wrestling EC3
About to
coming
say
up.
we was talking about, like you had mentioned like potentially being last pay-per-view match. That might be his last match. In the May
Could
75.
be.
Could
It could
be.
be. And, you know, EC3 is just a mental. He's just amazing. Physically, he's in. I mean, what I don't know. I mean, we talk a lot, but what's the guy's body fat? Like zero. I don't know. I mean, amazing. Tom Latimer, I think one of the most talented guys in the business. Trevor Murdoch, you know, has won the title twice. Go through the locker room and look at the guys in there. So, for me to say that because as a champion, you're wrestling a lot. Could I do that now? Don't know, but that would be the best case scenario. Probably not realistic. Okay, so for me, and Billy's right. I have not. I've heard parts of that interview. I haven't heard him talk about that at all. He came up and he asked me about 75
Mhm.
because obviously I've been doing more commentary. And I said, Billy, he said it. I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm never going to retire, ever. I mean, and don't get me wrong. There may be a time when I am done in the ring, but as a what I consider a man of my word, I'm not going to retire and then come back. And I always want the ability that if somebody calls and says, hey, we want to do this, here's an opportunity, would you look at that? And I want to do it, I'm going to do it. Right. So I'm not going to retire and come back and retire and come back. I'm just not. So chances are with my personality, what that would look like for me is I will work for the NWA. I will wrestle when I can. I'll wrestle when there's an opportunity for the NWA. I'll wrestle other places to keep my kind of keep my skills as sharp as I can, and to get that fix for that addiction, because that's what it is. I gotta be in the ring, man. I love it. There's nothing like it. But if I'm a full time commentator for the next 5 years, whatever, if I get to work in the back as you know, as an agent, if I get to work in the office doing whatever, that's a great. And then wrestle when I want to. That's what a great situation that would be.
Mm. Some of you had mentioned, you had just mentioned a name, and then it was like sticking to me, like sticking to my brain, like the whole time you was talking as I was listening to you. You had mentioned a Jack Briscoe, right? And this is an account I follow on Twitter, and or Twitter or X, and I cannot remember the name, and the name is escaping me, this Twitter account, but I've been following them for a long time, and they post like these like throwback wrestling clips, like from like all Japan, and like all just all these like real stuff. Like you can find, for real, you can find all this stuff on YouTube. It's
Yeah,
like create like the
yeah, yeah.
archive stuff. But I had saw like a couple like Jack Briscoe clips on the person's Twitter one time. And I went on YouTube, and you could like again, you could just find this stuff, just search it up. Man, Jack Briscoe is bad, man. I'm
And
supposed like when it's so crazy. Like seeing like it was this one man. I really can't remember who it was against, but dude, like he was like this man was moving like he was in like same maneuvers and stuff you would see like in 2020, like people doing the kip ups and all this. I was like, look at Jack Briscoe, man. was going crazy in the ring.
here's the thing that I think kind of gets lost is I mean, we look back at that and we think of them as, oh yeah, those guys were slow and
Yeah.
methodical, and they could be, but they were also working 40-minute matches, right? I mean, that's a different pace. That's a different pace. But you talk about Jack and Jerry Briscoe, you talk about the Funks. Um, those guys were as real as you could be. I mean, go back and look at their amateur stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh
They
yeah. They did do
we're
that. Yeah.
we're talking about national champions. Go back. I mentioned earlier. Um, you know, some of those guys, Golden Glove boxers. Some, I mean, the history of those men. Wahoo McDaniels played pro football, was a scratch golfer. I mean, and one of the toughest men in history. He didn't win the world championship because he didn't have to, right?
Mhm.
I mean, he was Wahoo McDaniels. These guys were. You learned pretty quickly. Go back for that Bill Watts era of, even going forward, where you get Dr. Death Steve Williams and you get Bam Bam Terry Gordy, and those guys. If you weren't real, you didn't get a job. And you know the rule: if you got into a fight publicly, if you got into a bar fight and lost, you don't have a job anymore, right? Because you didn't represent the company. So yeah, I think you go back and you look at those guys; they could do anything, but you also better respect them. It's funny. I'm like you. You were talking about watching old YouTube stuff. That's what I watch. You know, I'm always searching and I'm looking. And I was looking the other day about the Montreal screw job stuff, and it was funny because Shawn Michaels made the comment as he was going down that Jerry Briscoe literally pulled him aside and he said, Do you want me to show you a couple of shoot things that just in case it gets rough in there?"
Mm.
Okay, you've got Jerry Briscoe, who is now an agent, and at the time, what was he? They called him the Stooges, who
Yeah.
is talking to Shawn Michaels, one of the best performers in the history of wrestling, going in against Bret Hart, one of the best performers in the history of wrestling, saying, "Do you want me to show you a couple of shoot moves to take care of yourself?" Look, I mean, it's real. Those guys were amazing. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, that was a long way around for that, but yeah,
No,
those guys
no,
were.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that little detour we took. But it's also something you had mentioned in your last answer. You talked about. I actually want to ask you, like, on top of your commentary work, and of course, you being in the ring, do you do agent work for the NWA, or is that something that you could like you said could see something down the lines, or being behind the scenes like in talent relations or anything like that? Could you see yourself sort of taking on one of those roles on top of what you do on commentary?
Yeah, yes to all of that. There's been lots of discussion off and on over, because I don't even know how long this has been now, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, five.
But
Yeah, 5 years.
it's
Yeah.
been discussed about talent relations. But our Pat Kenny's there now and does, I mean, fantastic job. Um, I've agented a few matches, but if you say, okay, well, look who we have agenting matches, we're not talking about good wrestlers. We're talking about wrestling legends.
Yes, and I know
Um,
Homicide. I think with y'all.
Homicide,
Yeah.
Medusa has been there. Jazz, who should be in the Hall of
Jazz.
Fame.
Oh my man. Say it
I mean,
again,
it's
Tim. Say it
yeah.
again,
Well,
man.
I work with her for another organization, and I agent matches with that one. But I learn from her every time.
Mm.
She's Boy, she should be in the Hall of Fame, and
She
she may be
should.
the baddest, the her catch line, but she was one of the baddest women in wrestling for a long time.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I'm saying, like, when you look at those people,
I'm about to say real quick, Tim,
Dr. Tom,
yeah, it's so funny. You
yeah,
just read my mind,
yeah,
but
it's like, I don't fit into those categories. Someday maybe, I'm going to keep learning. I mean, I watch those guys, and I saw Homicide handle a situation one day, and I walked over and went, "Could you walk me through that?" I mean, and it wasn't a wrestling thing. It was
yeah,
how did you handle that diplomatically without? So I'm always learning, and so I don't fit into that category yet, but I'll keep working at it, and maybe at some point. But yeah, I would do anything. My ultimate goal. My shoe job. I'm a teacher, and
yeah.
um, my ultimate goal would be to get to a point where I'm not teaching and I'm doing something for the NWA full time,
Mm.
whatever that may be.
Yeah, for sure. Nah, I think that like to be you just say like you say like a real like personable individual just from what I seen of you on screen. So I think that talent relations like is the most probably like the smoothest transition. Like it'll probably be like just like get right in there and like it's nothing. But one thing that I definitely wanted to bring up during our conversation, man, was I think back in but like this was like months before the launch of NWA Power. I know you had been doing stuff with the NWA, but it was a pop up event. I think in Tennessee, you had did like a tag match, and on the other end of that tag match was the late Joseph Hudson, aka Josephus, who was also known as the Question Mark. So talk to me about like your experiences working with him, man. And I even know you guys had that empty arena match.
Yeah.
I think a year or so ago before the launch of NWA Power. But talk to me about your experiences on screen with him and off screen, man. Of course, when he passed away, there was a lot of love and just a lot of people paying their respects from within NWA from outside the NWA and things like that. A lot of people came forward and shared a lot of good stories about Josephus. So I just wanted to make sure I asked you to sort of bring some more good goodness to his memory. I guess is what I'm trying to
It's
say.
it's funny. It's interesting. I got a text. This is about a couple of months ago from Austin Idol, and he said, I can't. He goes, who was our original crew of guys? And I
Mm,
think what he was asking, because he was trying to kind of put it together, like who was here on this. And I think what he was asking was probably more like season one, I think is what he
yeah.
was at. I think, but that's not the way I took it. And I called him and
Oh,
I
okay.
said, I said, here's our original crew of guys. It was me as the champion. It was Nick coming after the championship. It was Josephus, right? It was Joseph. And then this big surprise when I lost the title was Austin Idol came in as Nick's manager at the time. And I said, and that was our entire crew. That was it.
Mm,
That's what we had. We had three wrestlers, and then Austin came in as the manager. And what a lot of people didn't realize is the stuff Joseph was doing behind the scenes, because he was he was a music professor at I don't know if it was a junior college or a college. That's what he did. He was editing. He was producing a lot of those. One of the things that a lot of people really loved about the first couple of seasons was we really had, and intentionally, we really had that throwback old school NWA look. The commercials. Well, Joseph was doing a lot of those commercials, right?
yeah.
and and putting those together. So his talent was outside the ring, he was doing a little bit of everything. Um, the the empty arena match was, man, it was an experience. Yeah, Joseph was. Well, here's what we were told: Tim, Joseph's going to take a beating. I need one big bump out of you for the finish. That's what we were told, and we weren't really given a time. We did it at Impact Arena in Orlando. Obviously, no crowd. It's an empty arena match. Their commentators were doing it, which was good. It was great. We had all of their stuff, but it was so quiet because it's an empty arena match that even though they were way back behind, production, you could hear everything they were saying. And I just had this, and I don't know why, but I basically just thought I'll just have a running commentary while the match is going on. I'll talk the whole time. It's too quiet. Who
Yeah.
wants to hear a couple of big guys just grunting? You know, and um, afterwards, the initial was, I think that was a little bit much. I'm not sure if it took away from the match, and then immediately after getting it, it was like, oh no, that was great. It was
Yeah.
fine. Just it worked out well. Joseph took a beating. I mean, it's an empty arena match, and it's basically it's anything goes, no DQ, hardcore, do whatever you want. And the only thing that I wanted to do that we didn't get to do, because I'm very much a history of wrestling guy. If you go back and watch that match, and you are a wrestling historian, there is a nod to almost every empty arena match that's been big in history. Okay, I did that. I do that on purpose. I mean, even today, if you watch my matches, I only got 3 or 4 moves, but they're all a nod to somebody in history. The one that we didn't get to do was the popcorn spot from, I guess it was Lawler and Funk, but they didn't. They were afraid that we would legitimately break the popcorn machine, so they wouldn't let us back there. Um, Joseph, the question mark thing. I don't want to. That's probably been done, but I don't want to like pull the curtain back too far. But my opinion is that was probably intended to be more humorous and
It got
probably
over.
probably a short term, let's maybe a transition. Let's get Joseph out of Josephus and moving
Yeah.
toward and like you said, between him and Aaron Stevens putting that stuff together and the chemistry that they had, it became the hottest thing in the NWA. I still don't understand it. I mean, he intentionally was being hokey, and the
Yeah.
crowd loved it. And the more he did, the more, and then you throw Aaron in with his belt, and his karate. It really was something that people couldn't wait to see. And there were times when I was like going, "Are you kidding me?
Right.
I mean, we're out there killing ourselves, and you're doing this," and then the crowd's going anyway. So, um, Joseph and I were definitely friends. We had a really interesting chemistry at times where um, we loved each other, but it was more like two brothers who would kind of rib each other all the time. And,
Yeah.
so it's, uh, you know, to this day, I mean, I miss Joseph. Way too young, I mean, let me give you, yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't mind, but, we did that pop up match.
Mm.
And it ended up being David Arquette
Yeah.
and myself against Josephus, and I can't remember what they called her, but his, the lady with the shaved head, and that was his partner. And then they brought in, because she didn't have any wrestling experience. They brought in, I can't remember, but the lady who had a great career with glorious ladies of wrestling and was
Mm.
good. Joseph loses the match. He's getting his head shaved, and I was going to do something like we were in the back, and his son was there watching the match. His son went to the back, and I was going to do something that I thought was funny, like maybe with his head shaved or whatever. Oh, his beard. That's what it was. I was doing something with his beard, and he legit looked at me and went, "Not with my son in the room."
Mm.
And he loved that kid, and for him to lose his dad that young,
Yeah,
you know,
man.
great person. cared so much about his son, and to have that taken away, and so unexpected for all of us, but his family, man, I can't imagine what that would be like.
For sure, for sure. That definitely but blessings to Joseph Hudson's family, close ones and close friends and family. Definitely blessings to everybody who who's close to him. So yeah, they definitely wanted to mention that, man. I thought y'all had some. I know when I was going through like your matches, I was like, oh, I had some little bit of history going on, man. So I was like, I definitely thought it'd be cool to mention. But like, so sort of circling back again, back to that sort of early run of power, man. Like I think that you also had a lot of great fanfare and a lot of that studio audience got behind you. Do you just try to like more so chalk that up to like you just being like again, like I mentioned, personable and just like being yourself? Like you were, I don't really think you were playing like a character. You were just Tim Storm, and that like attracted a lot of the audience to you, and they attached themselves to you. Like, do you think that was just a big thing, and you gaining that fanfare was you just being yourself on NWA Power?
Yeah, it there was no plan there. I mean, it was. I remember Billy at one point um, said some really nice. I mean, said really nice things about the promos I was cutting, and he goes, "I'll be real honest with you." He said, "I can't figure out where Tim Scoggins stops and Tim Storm starts."
Mm,
He said, "It's seamless." He said, I don't know where you're, which is you." And I went, "That's just it. It is me." And
yeah.
that started with 10 pounds of gold. That was a hard yes for me to say, because I'm old school, and you don't let the fans in. I mean, we all want it to be, yeah, I'm Ric Flair. I show up in a limo and I make millions of dollars a year, and I've got suits. And truthfully, especially when you're starting out, I mean, you're lucky to get gas money. So for me to say to Billy and Dave at the time was that I would open up my family, I would open up my job, I would show people who I really am. That was not a just a given. But what I loved about it was that they never scripted anything. Nothing was scripted. They would ask the question, I would answer the question. And somehow the fans they'll kind of started, like the very first one I remember. You have to develop a pretty thick skin in professional wrestling, because you can't make everybody happy. There's always going to be detractors of some kind. And it's, again, it's funny to me now, but it's because of my age. But it's like the first time I did one, a lot of the comments were like, how old is this guy? How's that? Now, again, this is 5 years ago. I was young back then, but it's so so we get to Power, and I told you that it was sink or swim.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was told, you're going to cut a promo before you and Nick's match, um, 30, 40 seconds, just kind of get us where we were at. Okay. Right before I went through, Billy walked over and he goes, "Don't worry about the time. Cut your promo." And I just went, ooh, because now I'm
That's
free.
all you needed to
But,
hear.
yeah,
Yeah.
I needed to, because I had and right now I've got so much stuff that I want to say promo wise. You know, I don't have necessarily the conduit for that to do that right now. But for whatever reason, and again, if you go back and watch that one in particular, um, a lot of that was my nod to Dusty Rhodes, and some other people, and I did that very intentionally, because I think we have to recognize the history of wrestling. I think we have to recognize who went before us, because without them, we're not where we are today. So I said some things that were very much, very much that I'm sorry, this makes me laugh. Somebody brought this up today. Uh, Very much a nod to Dusty Rhodes and a nod to Eminem. So, you know, my opening, one of the things, and I didn't think the crowd would get it, is, I said, if you had one chance, you had one opportunity to reach out, and I basically cut the line. So,
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, nobody's going to get that. And I paused, everybody got it. And I was like, oh, okay, I see what we got now. And they started laughing, because I said something like what a famous philosopher once said. And so yeah, but they connected, man. And they got behind me.
Yeah.
And it's especially when you don't go out there. I didn't go out there thinking I'm going to say this and they're going to react like this. No, yeah, I just went out there and started talking, and yeah, it was. I hate to use that term magic, but man, it was very cool.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely was a great time, man. Like, so look, well, you mentioned the 10 pounds of gold series. There was a point, and I don't know how much you can touch on this. I know it was brought up on one occasion, but I don't think you ever like went like too in depth, too in depth with it. But I remember that it was like mentioned that there was an offer on the table for you to drop the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in a promotion in Japan, and you of course obviously turned it down. And this was, I believe, shortly after Billy Corgan took ownership of the NWA. I don't know how much like insight you can provide on that, or like I'm not expecting you to like name drop said promotion that extended this offer, but sort of talk to me about your mindset when you receive that offer, because I'm sure just as an individual, certain opportunities come along and you may like think about it, or not necessarily think, not that you thinking about it, but I'm talking about just in general, just like any opportunity come, you might like, maybe I think about this or I think about that, just in anything. But just talk to me about your mindset at that particular time, how that offer came about, and sort of, ultimately you decided not to go through with that, because I mean, I think like especially with hindsight, I think that would have looked real bad. Like in hindsight, that would have been rough. That would have been real rough. But like
It,
just talk, yeah,
here's
just
the
talk
funny
to me about that.
here's the funny thing, and again, historically speaking, that's not unheard of.
Yeah,
I think Jerry, I
yeah.
think Jerry, I think Jerry Briscoe did it. Harley was with him, and it was a huge amount of money. And I want to say it might have been the drop to Giant Baba, maybe, where they basically dropped, and I think 3 days later won it back. And the NWA, if I'm remembering right, the NWA didn't approve any of that, right? So historically, that's been done before, and I guess truthfully for me, there's more than one offer for that. I mean,
Mm,
the amounts of money were pretty different, but the thought there was some discussion as I was going to, making the trip to Japan and planning some other trips and those kind of things, that maybe we do something like that. I think that was actually pitched to, and I don't remember if this was pre Billy or, Lightning One or post, but, that maybe drop it over there and the guy hold it for 3 months. Because think about that. You're made in Japan. It's to walking, going to Japan as the NWA world champion is completely different than probably anywhere on earth. Their respect and their love of the NWA champion is, I mean, it's almost worship.
was
And
not to cut you off, to I wanted that because I had came to was Rob Conway the last person to do that? They had the NWA
he
World's Heavyweight title, and he went to Japan. He was in New Japan as the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, I think.
did because I know that I want to say that the NWA owner was actually managing him at the time and maybe was involved in some of the match
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
Um, but I also know that Rob Conway and Jack Stane, as NWA tag champions, went to Japan a couple of times, and defended those titles. Um, Kind of the way the situation was worked is that they did not. That wasn't a good idea, right? I mean, we're not going to drop it. To me, you don't turn major titles over quickly and short term. I think it loses some of the meaning if you're just constantly changing champions. It loses to me it loses the respect of that title. Um, it was a considerable amount of money,
Mm.
and I won't say it was life changing. It's not like, okay, well, I do this and I'm retired. It's nothing like that. But it was a lot of money. It, but it never even was a realistic decision. I didn't have to make it. You think about it, like you said, you kind of go, what could I do with that kind of money? I've always wanted a Corvette. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that you can look at. Um, but truthfully, and this people are going to go, because that's not wrestling now. It meant too much to me for me to even consider that realistically. And then even back here, I won't know names because I probably will run into these people, but it's because they were all in. But there was some other states who thought that it would be great to come up and drop the title to their guy or to them personally, and that's a whole different ballgame. That's a joke. I would not even consider doing that. The other money was got your attention, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I better leave that alone. But even I mean, there was even some finagling to go. Hey, that um, the plan was for you to probably drop it to me anyway, and before they bought it. So why don't we do this? And he'll pay the
Mm,
fee. No, no, that's
try to finesse you.
yeah, that's a
Oh.
little shady. I know, but to the point where I did call Billy and say, hey, did you know anything about this? Was that ever going to happen? He goes, nope, not going to do that. That was way
Mm,
before me. We're not doing that. So, and truthfully, they put a ton of trust in me. Um, when I found out that the NWA had been purchased, my first thought was it was a really good run. It
yeah.
doesn't take anything away from what I've accomplished. I never thought I'd be on the list of the greatest wrestlers of all time, in my opinion, of NWA champions. Um, so I really thought probably my first match out, whoever they picked, because Billy came from TNA, and I probably had a list of guys that were in consideration. But to leave it on me, let me run a program with Nick so that it meant something. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Mm, mm. But again, like when you talk about like that situation, like because I remember the like the verbiage and the 10 pounds ago, and I don't even think it was you saying that. I think it was somebody else narrating over it, that it was like they wanted you to, like, I guess, do it behind like the NWA's back, and
Yep.
I think it says a lot about your morals, like about it's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that, because I mean I mean, if you wanted to, you really could have did it. Like if you like
Oh,
really
yeah.
wanted to, you could have did it. But like I think it says a
Yeah.
lot that you was, to the mindset that, nah, man, that's not even my style to move on other people like that. So I think
Right.
that says a lot
It,
about you.
it's not. It's not. But it really meant that much to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure. What was it? DiBiase, every man's got a price. I mean, I'm sure that there was probably a point where I'd have gone, man, I can't. How do you turn that down? But it wasn't even a consider. Let me. Okay, boy, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. So Dex, don't get mad at me. Do you know who the voice was?
Who was it?
Dexter Lumis from
Oh,
the WWE.
that's the. Hey, hold on, wait, bro. So Lewis, he did a signing one time. This is a quick sidetrack. He did a signing one time, right? This dude did not say a word. I'm talking about the whole sign. Like, he was like doing like hand signals and hand motions, like, but he would never say, like, I've never like. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen people like committed a character. Like, I'm pretty sure, but like this dude is like, there is no breaking it like whatsoever. I'm talking about not even cracking a
Yeah,
smile, like just full in it. But
I've got I've
that's
got
interesting.
huge respect for that. I mean, I think if you got a character, stay in that character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that was pre WWE stuff,
Mm.
and it actually started. It got so good that we started making jokes about it, where it would be, you know, Tim Storm reaches for the cornflakes and starts to pour the milk. I mean, it's like the voice, and it's like, the voice of Tim Storm's mind going, and but it's, yeah, I don't think I don't, there's probably three people who know that's who
Mm.
that was. Now
Look at
everybody
that,
knows.
man.
Everybody listening, that's who it was. Sorry,
Look at
Dex.
that, man. Oh man, Dexter Lumis,
Yeah.
some Storm just put you out, man. Put you
Oh no,
out.
that's a compliment, man.
Yeah. No,
The voice in my mind, that's a good thing because there's not
yeah.
much goes on in there. So
Yeah, no, it was definitely great. And that's cool to know that Loomis is behind that video package, man. That's that's like that, that stretch. That's cool, man. But lastly, Tim, before we get out of here, man, it's sort of like a retrospective question, I guess. Like when you look back over the last 20 plus years, everything that you've been able to accomplish. Hell, we could even add in, just life in general, like what you've been able to accomplish just in life. Like if it I mean, we just stick to your career on this question, but um like if your career, like, it all is gone tomorrow, like, you think you could look back and just be like, all right, I'm cool with that. And like not and then
Mhm.
not bug you before go to bed, or not bug you when you wake up in the morning. You think you can just look back at everything and be like, I did all right. I'm cool. I can.
I can look back and a couple of things. I I think I have tried for it's I think I'm coming up on 28 years, I think.
Mm,
Um, of I've tried to be professional, both in the ring, business wise with wrestling. I've tried to keep everything professional. I've tried to have a good moral character in how I approach things. Um, I think that one of the things that's helped me is I'm very honest and upfront with people. Whether that's pricing or if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be somewhere. That's just the way it is. And if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I need you on this," now I always say, "Yes, I'll take that booking. Here's the particulars." But I'd have to say that if the NWA ends up scheduling something, I have to be there. So as long
mm,
as you're okay, man, I have no regrets at all. You know, I am happy with my career. I don't want it to end. I'm not going to retire. Now I may limp quietly off into the sunset, at some point, but I will look back and go, I've actually accomplished more than I ever dreamed. I am working for a promotion in Arkansas, and I took a picture about a month ago with the three guys that I had my first match with, and
mm,
and we were talking about it, and you know, I mean, I would have. How do you predict? You don't that 20 whatever years from now, um, I'm a former NWA World's Champion. It just that I would have a pay-per-view match coming up in St. Louis at 59 years old in a no DQ match against, that I would have a career on commentary with, and I think I've done a pretty decent job on that. I'm still trying to get better. Got a lot of really good friends in the wrestling business, and not a lot of people can say that because it's a weird business. If I woke up tomorrow and I was done, you know, I'd still go to the gym, but other than that, life wouldn't change a whole lot except,
mm,
I'd still be happy.
mm. I'm glad to hear that, man. That's sound like you just from hearing your answer, sound like you very like I mean, you said it like you're very happy with what you've been able to
Mhm.
accomplish throughout these past 20 plus years, man. But like
More than average.
yeah, and it's just it's really cool to like because I when I interview I interview like wrestlers who are like sometimes maybe they like 5 or 6 years in, and like I would ask them that. It seems like a lot of people have like a most people, I guess these days it seems like they have like a good grip on like I guess reality, I guess, or more so they feel good about even within that like I mentioned that 5 to 6 year time frame. They feel like if it ended, it wouldn't be like the world is over. Like it would hurt, like
Right.
most definitely it would hurt, but like it wouldn't be like, well, I guess I'm gonna just hide in my room for the rest of my life. Like it's they have a pretty good feeling about everything. And I'm glad that you had that same feeling. And I will tell you when you talk about commentary, you're very good at commentary. I will tell you that
Thank,
100%.
thank you very much.
That's
I
that's
don't.
that's 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 coming. That's all honesty right there. You are very good at commentary.
I,
So
I appreciate that, and I'm going to give Joe and Velvet credit on that. They make me look good. So, but I really do appreciate that. It's again was not on my list of things that I wanted to do, but I enjoy it. If I want to be good at it. So yeah, I mean it's been a good ride.
mm,
And if again I won't, you're never going to hear me say Tim Storm has announced his retirement. Um, but I may just disappear.
yeah.
I may just not be there anymore. I'm 100% okay with that.